G'day, my fellow media collectors. I'm Troy, and today we're looking at Iron Man, the animated series, was an animated television cartoon that was produced by Marvel Entertainment Group, Marvel Films, Rainbow Animation Korea, and Koko Enterprises. And it aired from the 24th of September 1994 through to the 24th of February 1996. The series aired in syndication as part of the Marvel Action Hour, which packed Iron Man with other animated series based on Marvel properties, including the Fantastic Four and the Incredible Hulk, with one half-hour episode from each series airing back to back. With just 2 seasons, Iron Man underwent a significant transformation between them due to a change in production studios. This overhaul dramatically changed and altered the show's premise, tone, and overall style, making the 2 seasons feel almost like 2 entirely different shows. This DVD has all 26 episodes with a runtime of 26 minutes each. It was first released on DVD on the 4th of May 2010. And it was distributed by Buena Vista Home Video. Iron Man the animated series follows billionaire industrialist Tony Stark, who uses his high-tech armour to become the superhero Iron Man. By day, Stark runs Stark Enterprises. By night, he leads Force Works, a team of heroes including War Machine, Scarlet Witch, Hawkeye, and Spider-Woman, battling threats to global security led by the evil Mandarin and his minions, featuring Dreadknight, Blizzard, Blacklash, and Grey Gargoyle, amongst others, in epic battles to save the Earth from his evil plans. Now, to review the stories and scripts from this show, you have to do it in 2 parts, as the show is a tale of 2 separate seasons, with the tone of the show, the animation, and the script quality, and the different styles of storytelling being almost day and night differences from one season to the next. The scripts in the first season leaned heavily into that classic formulaic Saturday morning cartoon writing, episodes typically following a Mandarin scheme of the week formula with predictable setups and resolutions. The dialogue was often cheesy, filled with one-liners, exposition dumps, and little to no character development at all. Plot development was let's just say at a minimum as well, and the characters' arcs were largely static at best. Now, with all of that being said, it was for its target audience of that time, which is kids of the mid-90s, and it's the fast-paced action, colourful scripts. They were a product of that time and were pretty much the standard for most 90s cartoons around that time. But season 2, on the other hand, saw a significant improvement in the script writing, with new writers introducing more serialized storytelling, more character development, and more mature themes than previously. Now, this time around, we have Tony facing internal struggles, particularly his battle with trust, identity, betrayal, adding some real much needed emotional layers to the show that it was missing from the first season. And instead of our supporting characters just being extras in the background and not doing much, this time around we just have War Machine and Spider-Woman, and they were given more personality and more agency, and the plots often carried sort of over from episode to episode, so you could tell like a fuller, bigger story. Also, the dialogue was tighter and more purposeful, with fewer of those one-liners this time around, and a lot more introspection by the characters. The show really tackled more ambitious storylines like betrayal within Force Works, Stark's technological dependency, and some more nuanced villains that weren't exactly one-dimensional like the previous season, really making this season a noticeable step up in ambition and execution from the previous one. Overall, the writing mirrored the show's transformation from a standard toy-friendly cartoon to a show that dared to take itself a bit more seriously the second time around. So for that, it's a hard one, but for this one, I'm going to give it a 19 out of 30. Iron Man the animated series was adapted from the Iron Man comic book character from Marvel Comics, of course, at the time around that mid-90s, but the show took some broad inspiration from the comics with some, shall we say, heavily simplified and altered characters and plots, really made for that younger audience. Like, okay, let's take Tony's origin story for instance. It shared some of the similarity traits of what was in the comics with his heart problem and his reliance on the reactor to keep him alive. But his Vietnam era origins from the comics were reworked into a more, shall we say, sanitized tech-centric backstory, which was more, how can we put it, suitable for kids. One thing I found puzzling was rather than adapting more, shall we say, a famous Avengers team to go with him, the show created a version that they called Force Works, based on a very short-lived comic team from the early 90s. I've got to say, look, I read a lot of comics in the 90s and I can't remember Force Works at all. I kind of thought it, when I watched it at first, the first couple of episodes, I was kind of like, oh, look, it's the West Coast Avengers, as you had Hawkeye, Scarlet Witch, Spider-Woman and Iron Man, as you can see from this graphic. But then later on, they're like, hey, we're Force Works. And I was like, who and what now? And for the show's main villain, we had the Mandarin, of course. Who else could you pick? He was reimagined with a more, shall we say, mystical, almost sorcerer-like vibe, heavily focusing on the 10 magic rings. Then say in the comics, where the Mandarin is more of a complex figure tied to more science fiction and Cold War themes, and they even changed his look, for crying out loud. They made him look like a little green alien than say an evil Chinese dictator.
What the hell is that?
Now for the cast, I'll just pull them down from here. And as you can see, the list is very extensive. So many people appeared on this show with multiple people playing and doing the same characters. So it's really hard to review the voice acting when you have so many people doing bits and pieces all over the shop. And this list is just the reoccurring actors. This doesn't include all the guest voices that appears as well, which is a whole another list again. So for this, I'm not going to focus on any one actor. I'm just going to give like a broad review of the voice acting in general, which was just like the show itself, very uneven and a bit all over the shop, especially in season 1, but it did get a bit stronger and more focused in season 2. Just like the show. The show feels like it had little to no voice direction at all. Lines were delivered with some odd pacing at times, wrong emphasis on certain things, and absolutely no emotional investment sometimes at all. Very stale and stiff. Whether that's due to poor casting, weak direction, or just some of the bad scripts at times, the performances feel uninspired at best, mismatched, and at times just ultimately forgettable. It really was. While no one performance was groundbreaking, some actors did the best they could with what they had, while others sounded like they were literally phoning it in, to say the least. And look, for that, I'm going to give this, oh god, it's lucky it gets this actually, 12 out of 20. Okay, let's look at the disc case. And I don't really mind the look of this. It's very comic-esque and it's very in tune with the 90s look that the cartoon had. So I don't mind that at all. The side, not too bad. It doesn't exactly stick out too much, but you know, fits the purpose. On the back, very classic sort of 90s look yet again, with this shot of the cartoon. Not a great deal going on there, but like I said, still not too bad at all. So if we look at the discs now, relatively plain discs I suppose, but we just have the logo and they're a grey colour there. 3 discs in total for this US release. Overall, I don't mind it. I don't mind this one at all. So for that, I'm probably going to be generous here, and I'm going to give this a 7 out of 10. As you can see, there are, well, no special features on this DVD. It is just the episodes, and that is it, which, let's face it, really isn't a surprise, but it's also disappointing at the same time nonetheless. Now, I have the US release, but there is an Australian version and a European release out there as well, and from what I could find out on the net, they look to be the same too, like this US release. They just have the episodes and no special features that I could find. Anyway, with that, of course, you know what the score is going to be, because there's nothing there to give a score to. So, as I say, we get a score of 0 out of 10. As I bring up the Rotten Tomatoes scorecard, as you can see, the critics came in at, no score. And the audience score was, nothing there too. Okay, that's a bit strange. I thought they'd at least have something. Anyway, you know what that means? Yes. Off to IMDb to the rescue, and they have a score of, there we go, 6.5 out of 10, which I think is dead on the money for me, with the majority of reviewers giving it just a good review, not a great one, just good, if you know what I mean. And I think it comes down to the split tone in the seasons, as 2 was way better than 1, but the reviews as a whole, the second season kind of lifts, you know what I mean? It just lifted the show above what season 1 started out as. So I think that's where you kind of get that little bit of a bump in the score, because if you were just going off the first season, yeah, I think the score would be pretty low. Anyway, if we round it out, of course, we're going to get a score of 7 out of 10. Now, look, I don't actually think I ever saw this on TV here in Australia. Now, before you say anything, for some of my Aussie viewers, it's not that it wasn't shown here that I know of, I just never saw it. I think this cartoon, like a few other of the 90s Marvel cartoons, like say the Fantastic Four, Silver Surfer, the Hulk, I think these all kind of got lost in the mix due to really the success of their contemporaries, which were, of course, yes, the X-Men animated series and the Spider-Man animated series, which were far more popular, and they were on TV all the time. So for me, I got to watch this for the first time, and the first season, it did not give me much hope, as I felt like I had whiplash after watching it, as the stories and the action were so fast paced that it was almost hard to keep up with what was going on the screen, as it felt like the show was in fast forward, that so much happened so quickly, it was almost hard to remember what happened. Like even now, if you ask me, do you remember what happened in an episode? I'd be buggered if I could tell you what happened. But then the second season comes along, and it literally does a complete 180, and the stories and the animation just being completely different, but this time in a good way, with some more mature theme stories. And really, I think this time around they really took time to tell stories. And another thing too was less supporting characters in the mix, so things didn't feel really cramped or overcrowded. I did find the second season a lot more enjoyable than the first, that is for sure. But I'm not sure what's going on here in the second season, when Tony started to sport, yes, a mullet all of a sudden, all Death of Superman style. Anyway, look, we all make some bad fashion choices in our lives. Anyway, look, I'm glad I watched it, and look, I really think you should check it out too, but be warned that the first season is a bit rough, but I hate to say it, you really do need to watch the first season for the second season to make sense. Yeah, unfortunately, you've got to get through that. You've got to get through that pain to get to the good. Anyway, when it all comes down to it, for me personally, I'm probably going to go with, because the second season lifts it a bit, yeah, I'm going to go with a 13 out of 20. For availability, I'm going to give this a 3 out of 5, as it's not like super common, but it's not hard to find either, as there are a few versions out there to get Oz, European and US, so I'm sure you'll be able to find a copy. As far as collectability goes, I'm going to go middle of the range and go 3 out of 5. It's not a must-have, but it's definitely a good one for the collection, and especially if you're an Iron Man fan, definitely one to have if you're that inclined. For the average price, you are looking at somewhere between the $29 to $56 mark for DVD. So, as I always say, it really does pay to shop around. Let's go to the scorecard and see how this one shapes up. Now, for the final score, we get a grand total of 58 out of 100. Well, that's about what I thought it would be, just above middle of the road. So look, I do recommend that you check this out and see the evolution of the show, from this fast-paced kids show that gives you whiplash to a dark themed superhero piece with more mature stories, and definitely something you can sink your teeth into.
Ugh, this show's for older kids.
Next week on the show, we are looking at the animated film The Invincible Iron Man from 2007 on DVD. So make sure you tune in for that one. Thanks for watching.